producing and inspired working with other artists. And I just feel like it's something that I am passionate about and would love to use my records sort of as like a business card to, you know, get
Absolutely.
work as another style of musician, you know?
No, absolutely, man. Any musician I get to speak to that's able to write and produce, that's asking me for advice, I'm always saying, work with people and get placements, get on other people's songs first, because that's going to really help expand your brand. And, your name will be seen more. You're making money off, someone else's work. They're touring, they're doing all that.
Man, totally. It's just the community aspect of music is so important. And that took me a while to understand, like, how important it is to, encourage your friends. I mean, obviously I always was, but how important it is to be really adamant about, helping other people, having other people help you.
Absolutely.
Equally.
And you've worked with a lot of people. I want to start with some of your accolades, because you've been getting writing credits since about 2011, if I'm correct. At least from what I can see. I'm sure you've been writing since the dawn of time, but man, you composed on Twilight, right?
Well, we had a song. Me and my sister had a band, and a song was featured at the end of one of the movies. Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was like my first placement, as I was a young guy, so I didn't even realize how.
Bro, in Twilight, it wasn't like Ant's Life, Bug's Life, bro. You were on Twilight. Saga 1, 2, when it was popping, before it became, a little bit.
Yeah, totally, man.
That's amazing. Cool. I wanted to hear more about that. So you were in a band with your sister, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Really reminded me a lot of Billie Eilish and Phineas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Phineas.
Finian. And so I was like, how does that work? I have 3 siblings. If I'm locked in a room with them for more than 3 hours, it's over. So how did you guys, get to working together, create music together, touring together? How was that experience?
We're very close, and we, of course, being with anybody, like spending that much time with anybody and working closely, there's obviously, you have to communicate really well, or else, it's going to be tough. And especially with your family, because you have all these built-in things that oh, it's okay. It's all good. You have all these built-in things that with family that you don't necessarily have with somebody you haven't known your whole life. So, I think it was all about communication. And luckily, my sister and I are really good at that with each other. And, we also really respected each other as musicians, and, relied on each other emotionally when things were like grueling and hard. So, it was just about love, keeping it love, and not about
amazing. How was your relationship like? Like, was she producing, you were writing, you were producing, she was writing?
We were like a total team, we were doing all of that together. And we, everything was a collaboration, and we learned together in a big way.
And are you guys still collaborating at the time?
Yeah, we still do a lot of stuff. My sister played drums on the record, this newest record,
which is amazing, by the way. Amazing album. You released it in January, correct?
Yes. Yes.
It's En Garde, right?
Yes, En Garde. Yeah.
How did that name come about?
It was sort of like, it's like when you start a duel with somebody. It's like a fencing term, I think, originally. And it was
En Garde.
Yeah, exactly. And it was sort of about having like a battle with myself, is really, because I feel like whenever I'm making a record of my own, it's it's difficult, because the critic in your head is stronger when it's your own stuff, rather than when you're sort of bouncing off of somebody. And so I think it was just making a comment on like how grueling it is to like believe in yourself enough to like finish something, and it can be really difficult, but it's always worth it.
Absolutely. And this album's long too. Like a lot of albums these days, like that new like Kanye West thing, it's like 6 songs, 7 songs, 2 minutes each. You really gave your audience a full album. full album.
Well,
How
thank you so
long did it,
much.
no, thank you, man, for making it. How long did it take you to get the album together?
It took kind of a while because it was on and off between a lot of uh, other productions that I was doing. So I'd say it was like maybe like 6 months of work over the course of a year.
Oh, okay, that's efficient.
Yeah, I mean, I think we moved pretty well. We had a lot of great players come in, and that helped. And I was able to work with a lot of great people. I had a great studio, so there was a lot of really lucky things. But yeah, I mean, it takes me a while to make a record, whether I'm producing or making my own thing.
I mean, absolutely, man. Especially when, from at least from what I'm hearing, a lot of the instrumentation sounds analog, and so maybe
Yeah.
it's not. It might be MIDI, but it sounds so raw and organic. Is most of production in instruments analog live?
Yeah, I would say that even when things are like, there is a lot of like digital stuff, but even when it's like in there, it's usually played. Like the way that I do it is actually I have an iPad and I got it a couple of years ago, and I realized that there's some incredible apps for music on the iPad that are
Incredible, yeah.
like totally like a new instrument. And basically they're samplers that you can play like on a touch screen
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and move, and it's almost like that movie Minority Report or something, where they're just like he's throwing stuff away on like in the ether. And so those things are like, they sound electronic, but they actually are like the way that they're played feels very tactile and musical and organic to me. And so I think, yeah, like that's always my goal, is to include electronic elements and make them feel like they aren't like sticking out like as like a robot in the middle of like a field,
Yeah. Which you do a great job of. And like, I don't mean to say that anyone doing their music all digitally, because personally, if I make a song, it's all digital. I can't play anything.
I love that music.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's a different feel to the analog. Like, I don't know how to explain it. For example, Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly,
Yeah.
a lot of that album was analog. It was a really unique thing he did. I was shocked.
Feel it. Oh,
Exactly.
yeah.
You like when you hear like "We Gonna Be All Right," you can kind of feel those real drums, like the stick hitting the hat. So I think that's one of my favorite things about you, like off top, and I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for making your music, man. You didn't have to do all this. I wanted to go into something though that I thought was really, excuse my language, fucking cool.
Yeah, it's all good.
If I'm correct, if the notes provided to me are correct, forgive me if I'm not, your grandfather was a Star Wars composer?
Yeah. So my grandfather is a amazing film composer.
Shout out John Williams.
Yeah. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, he's totally like an enigma. He's really like a once in a generation kind of talent. So I'm even in awe of, just even though he's my grandpa, but it's like I'm still like a fan of him like the rest of the world. And it's definitely amazing to pick his brain about not even just music. He's a kind of a brilliant guy in every regard.
Oh,
like
sure.
He can talk about European history like it was music. So
it's not easy to be a composer at all. That's one of the unsung. Those are like the unsung heroes of this industry, because you don't see their names everywhere, but their work is heard and felt.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of the more time-consuming and solitary jobs you can choose.
Yeah.
So, it's you have to sacrifice a lot, and I think he definitely did, in terms of like, like a social life. He's a very like hermetic person, but he chose to give his art, as his gift to a lot of people. And so I'm proud of that, and
as you should be.
Amazing to know him. Yeah.
Which Star Wars, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, he did all of them.
Oh,
yeah.
I gotta go. You said all of them?
Yeah.
So the first three, or are we talking six?
We're talking all nine.
Still to like the ones coming out now.
Yeah, the most recent ones he did as well. So he's a trip, man.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I don't know the exact time frame, but I want to say that's over 20, 30 years of them working with him, because there's a gazillion composers out there, I'm sure.
Totally.
Wow, wow. Now, have you had the opportunity to work with him on anything music related?
No, you know, I of course I'm so lucky to have him as somebody to ask advice, and that, you know, is insane. But I've tried actually really hard to like earn my stripes and make sure that I'm not, you know, feeding off of what he built completely organically for himself.
I respect that.
And you know, of course, the fact that he's my grandpa is, I would say, an advantage just because it's an interesting thing to talk about. But it's very important to me, you know, to find my own path. And so,
Absolutely.
you know, no ever knocking him, but I've always just tried to have a little bit of separation, as well as, you know, total respect and love for how incredible he is, and, you know, admiring his career because it's amazing. I mean, he started as a pianist, and you know, just worked his ass off, and that's, you know, that's what I plan to do, is to let the work speak and nothing else.
Absolutely. It will too, man. It will.
Thanks.
No, of course, because you, from at least from what I understand, I might be wrong. Maybe there's somebody else who makes all your music, but you do so much of your work, and you do so much in music, composing, writing, producing. So I definitely see you, you know, following his footsteps. And I think your goal and your mission is to where he went. You got to go. You know, he brought you there, so now you got to. It's gonna be
Yeah.
tough because I don't know what's gonna be bigger than, like, you're gonna have to score Avatar or some shit.
Yeah,
I don't know
you
what's
know,
gonna be bigger.
there's no, of course, you know, it's, I mean, it's impossible really to achieve at that level. I mean, like I said, it's a once in a lifetime
No, it's
kind
possible.
of thing.
No, it's possible, man.
But you know, I don't see it as a competition, as well as, you know, I also think that, you know, like I would never be able to do, like, have the gift that he has, and there are things that I think that I do that, you know, he are would be foreign to him, like
Yeah,
producing
absolutely.
a record for a singer songwriter, you know. But it's not about that. It's really just about, like, and it's just taken me a while to learn, but it's about finding your own, you know,
Absolutely.
power and your in your own sort of talent.
So did growing up in a household, because your father was a film and TV composer as well.
Yeah.
So growing up in a household full of so many talented individuals, is that what kind of steered you to being a musician, or was it something else?
I mean, I think what steered me was just like being obsessed with it. Obviously, like having people. I mean, it's just my family is trippy. You know, like almost everybody in the family is a professional musician. It really is like a, you know,
That's
my sister, my uncles, my dad, my aunt. I mean, it's just, it's kind of like the family curse, you know. But it's awesome. It's incredible, and they're all incredible. And so, you know, of course, that through osmosis, you know, came through to
absolutely.
me. But I, you know, really, it's always just felt only because of passion for it, and not because of like feeling like I had to like prove something to them, or do what they do, you know. So it's just I've just, since I was a kid, I've always been obsessed. Started with the Beatles, and now has become every kind of music, everything.
That's amazing, man. What's when you say everything? What are like three songs that you're listening to now that aren't yours?
Let's see. I love Dijon. That's a new artist that I think is amazing, and he's a
Okay.
buddy, and him and his producers are friends of mine. I love them. Um, Blake Mills is always a huge influence on me, and a friend. Um, Listening to a lot of jazz recently. Miles Davis, Nefertiti is a favorite right now.
Hmm. Have you ever heard
Um,
of Esperanza Spalding?
yeah, definitely.
That's yeah,
I don't know her stuff very well, but she's an incredible talent.
incredible,
Yeah.
incredible. So we got to get back to your music because you dropped a full album. I'm gonna
Yeah.
highlight that again. And for anyone who just joined, we have Ethan Gruska here. Incredible artist, very talented. Since 2011, he's been composing, writing, producing for, we spoke about earlier, Twilight, his own work. He, bam, we like this list they sent me of your credits. We don't have enough time to go through it. It's incredible. So I just wanted to remind everyone who we have here. Um,
Thanks.
let's talk about your quarantine release kind of strategy, because I imagine when you made the album, you didn't think, well, it's gonna have to release it in the quarantine, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, none of what's happening right now in that regard was you know, on any of our minds. You know, luckily for me, I have a studio at my house, so I'm able to keep working. That was different 6 months ago. So just that timing was extremely lucky for me. So like I said, you know, like my records are a large part of them are about exposing myself as a writer and a producer, not only as an artist. So, you know, the idea of like not touring, of course, is a bummer, but it's not my priority usually, because I'm just always wanting to be in the studio. And so really I've been okay in that regard. And, you know, it's not ideal, but at the same time, I feel like my record is maybe a good quarantine record, because it's supposed to be mostly soothing. It's not necessarily supposed to like make you want to party. You know, there's a couple songs that have some energy, but mostly it's meant to be meditative and like, you know, dusty and sort of like, you know, like for you to listen on headphones is really the ideal sort of space. So, you know, I think that's actually, you know, if there's going to be a silver lining, that could be one.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And, you know, it's amazing to hear that, because I've spoken to a couple artists who are like, you can tell emotionally, not devastated, but distraught, because they might have put 2 years, a year into a work, and
absolutely
tour planned and this planned and that planned, and January hits.
Yeah.
And you have this body of work. A lot of them submitted it to Spotify already. So what did your team have to do? What did you and your team have to, like, did you guys sit down and like hop on Zoom and say, oh, fuck, dude, like, what are we going to do?
Well, luckily my record came out before this happened, and there was, you know, like a lot of the work in terms of like the rollout of things was sort of done before March, when things started, quarantine started getting
okay. Dope.
But, you know, there hasn't really been much of a plan in terms of the record, as much as just, you know, like keeping on doing things like this and talking to people about it, and being, you know, even though I'm not that active on social media, you know, promoting things every once in a while, but also, you know, like focusing on the next steps of things and collaborations that will, I think, be fruitful for whatever the next project is, you know?
Yeah. So you're working on new music right now, I'm assuming?
Oh yeah, totally. Every day.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you have like a project in mind? Because you just released one, so I imagine you're just creating
on like my personal front, like my personal project, you know, it's all sort of like gestating and brewing, and like is like, you know, because I just finished one, so it's sort of coming together in my mind slowly. But mostly I'm working on collaborating with other people and doing a lot of remote productions for other artists, and that always feeds my own thing. You know, when I learn something producing for another artist, you know, that tool gets put into the toolbox, and you know, whether it's like discovering a sound or a piece of gear or a cool way to make a second verse feel different than the first, you know, all those things.
Anything, a different hi-hat roll or a way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, just you know, constantly growing. So, you know, I see working with other people as a way of growing my own project, and vice versa.
That's exactly what it is, because I think that you, as you said, like, you're going to do a lot for these artists, but you never know what you're going to get back. As you mentioned, it might be an idea for a bridge, it might be a way to structure your song.
Totally. It's infinite, man. And like, I can't tell you how much more I've learned from working with other people than doing it, you know, alone. You know, you just gather a different, it's like exponential, you know, you learn so much from being around somebody's energy on top of their skills and their process, and it's big.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's talk about some of your successes. You have crazy streams on Spotify, like
Oh, thanks.
crazy streams on Spotify.
I
So I
appreciate
wanted
it.
no, of course, man. I wanted to ask you, what have you done in your career thus far that you think is responsible for a lot of your success?
Um, you know, I think that I think a really big breakthrough moment for me was producing an artist named Phoebe Bridgers.
Hmm.
She's a really incredible artist, and over the past few years, um, she's been doing great, and deservedly. You know, I think she's really brilliant and one of our more special songwriters. And so I co-produced her first record, and I think that was a really big turning point for just sort of my amount of work that started coming in, and feeling confidence in seeing something that I was a part of
Yeah,
have, success on a larger scale. And that's, of course, not why we make music, but it helps, when you see
absolutely.
something that you worked on do well, it gives you a boost. And
Yeah, when you see the fruits of your labor, you're immediately invigorated to get out there, plant more seeds.
totally.
And you guys collaborated on Enough for Now on the new
Yeah.
album.
Yeah.
How did you guys meet? How did that start? Because I see your names attached to each other,
Yeah.
like all around when I was looking you up.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing for me because Phoebe's incredible. But
Absolutely. Shout out
basically,
Phoebe. Shout out Phoebe right now,
shout
right?
out, always shout out Phoebe.
Anyway, sorry. So
That's
yeah, how did
okay.
you guys link up?
Well, I basically came in. I worked with this guy Tony Berg, who I think I mentioned earlier, who we co-produced her first record. And I came in originally because he's somebody that I worked with a lot, and he hired me like as a player, a session musician, which is what I was starting to do more and more. And it just snowballed because the workflow just, I think, changed, and like we all three just clicked creatively, and it just started feeling like, I think, to them and to me, like, this is great. This is like moving at a new and interesting pace. And I think I was bringing a little bit more of like an electronic and like, modern element, just because that's what I was getting into with gear, and like just sort of incorporating stuff like that into some of the earlier stages of the songs. And then I think we all just sort of ran together. So yeah, that was. But we met. I think like 5 years ago.
Oh, you guys did all this in 5 years? Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
She's a total beast, dude. Phoebe. Not only the two records that I've worked on, but she's made two other incredible records, and just put out a record today that she produced for another artist that's amazing. And I'm lucky to get to work with her. She's a special artist.
Shout out Phoebe. Major
Yeah,
shout out. She's very, very special.
totally.
Let me ask you. So I I always enjoy speaking to artists who are in the point of their career that I see you in, where you're doing great, you're doing incredible, numbers are solid, like the work, it speaks for itself, but you still have so much more to accomplish, and you know you're going to accomplish that. And what I always like compare it to is like when we were in high school and we were like, man, I can't wait to get done with high school, I can't wait till I graduate. And then you graduate, like you're going to win your Grammy, you're going to go platinum.
Right.
But are you appreciating this part of the journey?
Yeah, I really am. It's, of course, like when you have larger success, I think you have to grind a little less. But, I think also when you're grinding less, sometimes you sit back a little too far,
Yeah.
and relax a bit. And I don't see that. Of course, there's some people that have, like what you mentioned, Kendrick Lamar, massive success. Everything he puts out is unbelievable, and raises his own bar. But I think that it's important for me right now. Yeah, definitely. I think I appreciate the question, to just sort of appreciate the accomplishments thus far, and let the grind of like how to keep growing be inspiring and not like daunting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because at some point, like a flip gets hit where everywhere you go, people are going to recognize you, where you're not going to be able to walk into a Whole Foods and just be like, yeah, can I get that chicken salad, And so,
I don't know if I make that kind of music, but it's
no, you do, because I'm assuming you're in Los Angeles, right?
I am, yeah.
Oh, your music is LA as a muck, man. They're gonna recognize you. I'm gonna recognize you if I see you anywhere. Believe me.
Well, that's awesome, man. I appreciate that a lot.
No, of course, man, of course. So, who are some of your, I guess, like mentors, or people that you want that help pave you or shape you?
Well, this guy named Lenny Waronker is a really big mentor to me. He's a really interesting guy. He was a very respected A&R guy in the 70s and 80s, and a producer. Like, he produced all the Randy Newman records, a lot of Raikuda records. Just that era was kind of like owned by him as a producer and A&R person. And he actually signed me and my sister when I was 19. And so I've known him since I started working as a musician, and he's been an incredible mentor and just sort of like guide to like keep me working, especially in earlier years when I was still finding my way. And then I think meeting Tony Berg too is, he's really been a true mentor to me and a collaborator. And so I think finding a mentor is extremely important. I don't think I would be able to do a lot of the things that I do without it, because, I think it's the only way to really master something in any field is to have somebody has more experience than you.
Absolutely.
Show you some ropes. And even if you can't get that and find a mentor, you can sort of find them in books or movies, or you can, or in the past,
YouTube.
Yeah, totally.
So let me ask you, what is next for Ethan? Because you just dropped your album.
Yeah.
I mean, not just, but you dropped your album. We're amidst this like crazy quarantine. What's next career-wise for you?
Lots of production coming up. Working on several new records and EPs for other artists. I guess the one that I've talked about the most, because it's sort of the closest to coming out, is a new record by a band called Manchester Orchestra, who's really excellent, and that record's going to be really, really cool. So that's getting wrapped up.
You said Manchester Orchestra?
Manchester Orchestra.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm listen for sure.
Great band out of Atlanta. And then, lots of other productions for other artists, writing for people, making my own stuff, just kind of keeping on with what I'm doing and growing the community that I work with. That's
a beautiful thing, man. I think that being that you just dropped the album and we're in this sphere that we're in where we can't go out and do anything, I think that's really dope that you're like, well, I'm going to keep producing, whether it's for me or for somebody else. Like, I got to do me.
That's it, man. Just keep it up.
Let me ask you, if somebody hasn't heard any of your music, what's one song you want? What's the first song you want them to play?
I would love them to play a song called Haiku for You that I co-wrote and performed with Leanne LaHavas. I just think that's a pretty bizarre song, and it turned out really cool. And I think
Haiku for You?
Yeah, Haiku for You. And it's off of the new record. But, I mean, it's always rotating what song, I feel good about from the newest record, especially, when you work on it for so long, you sort of lose perspective. But that one
doesn't sound the same.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. That one's really, really been a favorite just since I finished it. Yeah.
Everybody, if you have not heard this man, Haiku for You, start with that one, please. Just jump into the whole album, honestly. En Garde it's beautiful. I haven't been able to dive in fully yet, and that's what I'm gonna be doing for the rest of my week. But from what I heard, man, it was really, really, really quality work, and keyword quality, because you're not just like click, 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 and doing something with auto-tune. I could tell that you're putting a lot of time into this. You're working with multiple musicians,
Yeah, totally. Well, I do love auto-tune, but you're right.
We all love auto-tune. Yeah,
not a ton of it on this one, but maybe the next.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like, at the end of the day, right? Everyone uses auto-tune in some sense.
I like it when it's like you can really hear it.
You can or you can't?
When you can.
Oh, okay. I like it when you can't. I like auto-tune when it's there and you only hear it on like the highest note almost.
Yeah, right.
Like you're like, oh, there's auto-tune on there. I'm not a big fan of like when I love Kanye, but when he did his whole auto-tune movement, I was like, no, man, like
I can see what you mean. I think back then I was in more of an organic mode too, but now when I listen to some of that stuff, I love it, but man, like, I'm not the person to ask because I like everything.
I can tell.
I just can't help it, because even if it's something I don't really like, I'm trying to usually learn from it. So
let me ask you, Oh my God! Someone said I'm making my new single featuring my auto-tune gas that comes out of my booty. That probably sounds crazy. Email
That's
that to Dash. We'll get that on the
yeah.
air.
Actually, I'm willing to do any co-production on that. Just hit me up, man. That sounds really
Hit
like an
them
interesting
up. Hit them
project.
up. Well, what advice do you have for an artist aspiring to get to where you are?
Um, I think be obsessed with it. You know, make it your real passion. Think, you know, make it your whole life. And you know, work on patience, and you know, and whether it's patience of getting to where you want to be in your career, or patience with the music itself. You know, like you have to, like, in order to finish something, a lot of times you have to make a lot of drafts,
Hmm.
and it's not just like you do it and it comes out, and like sometimes that happens and that's exciting and great, but you know, I think learning how to stick with something till the last breath of it in order to call it done is a skill and like a muscle that you have to engage. And so I would say just, you know, work on the muscle of finishing, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to, especially like one of my good friends. I think he was in here somewhere. His name's Thomas. Great like phenomenal producer composer. I always call him the GOAT, but for
That's
me,
sick.
like best producer I've been able to sit next to and watch.
That's
But I've
awesome.
seen the man like work on the same record again and again
Totally.
and again
Yeah.
and again, and like
Yeah.
6 months later, it's puzzling. So, what advice do you have on that? How do you stay focused on the song? Like, don't you just
Yeah.
want to go do a new song?
Well, it is. It can be really hard, and I think you have to, you know, like watch yourself and like take breaks, you know, and like find like always be looking for, do I have perspective on this still? You know, like it's really easy to get fatigued, you know, whether you're listening loud or listening for too long or listening to the same thing over and over again. You know, it's important to jump around, you know, like when I'm making a record, I'm always moving from song to song, you know, pretty fairly rapidly. But if you're like working on a single for somebody, you know, take breaks, make sure that you don't call it done just because you want it to be over. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
you gotta, and if you're getting that feeling, I would say take a day or two and don't listen to it and come back and you'll have a really good idea of what you need to do, I think.
So like, don't you're advising don't listen to it because like you can listen to it and you can mess with it. You're saying just walk away completely.
I think if you, not like always, but I think if you're feeling like you can't tell if it's good or done, you know, I think that that's a feeling that a lot of people can relate to when they're making something, is like, I kind of can't tell anymore. I thought it was cool, but I'm not feeling it now. That's oftentimes just fatigue. And
Mm.
sometimes it's right. Sometimes you come back and you're like, oh yeah, I was way off. And that's great. I mean, thank God you took the time. But if a lot of times you come back and you're like, yeah, I just was tripping. This is pretty close, you know?
Yeah, yeah. You like. I think sometimes you hear it. You hear it. It's like when you hear a word. You hear a word all day throughout. Eventually, you're like, that sounds kind of off.
Yeah,
You know?
it's true. Yeah, it's a similar sensation. It really
Yeah.
is.
So I'm gonna say I know we got a lot of your fans. I see a lot of people in here dropping hard eyes and stuff, and I know that's not for me. So I look horrible right now. So if anyone has any questions, I'm gonna give a few minutes, open it up to anyone in here. Anyone has any questions for Ethan? Tom, man, you got to meet this guy Thomas because he who's in the
That's
comments
the dude.
right now. Yeah, he's a very talented producer, but more importantly, his passion is actually film scores.
Oh,
And
cool.
he's shown me film scores that are like the screen on Pro Tools, you can't even see it. You got to be scrolling up and down. So
Right, right.
yeah, definitely
That's
super talented producer.
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, you guys should definitely Thomas DM Ethan,
Yeah,
DM
please,
Ethan, because you guys
please,
actually look
do.
alike too. So that'd be crazy. You guys can start a whole thing.
Please do. That would be awesome. Would love to.
Somebody says, what are some tricks you learned to court the unexpected in a song to give room for the experimental to happen? I like that.
An awesome question. Really, that's kind of like a priority to me. Is like finding pieces of gear that sort of do a little bit of work for you, and like a looper is a good simple example. Like if you create a loop of something that's not attached to the BPM of a song, and you then let that run through the song, it's gonna sort of morph over the bar line and over the chords in a different way. And sometimes if you just listen to it as a take, you're gonna go, okay, that doesn't work. But if you do it 3 or 4 times and let the looper do things accidentally, and then you go back in and you choose 5 moments out of the thing, you get these qualities and these moments that you could have never done on purpose. And that's just one example of, but I think it's
Damn,
really
that just messed my head up. That's a whole concept I never even thought about.
yeah, it's important to let, and even with humans too, with real musicians, let people play over the song without knowing it, you know, and like make mistakes, because I guarantee you when you go back and you start sifting through, you know, let's say they are trying to play a line and 3/4 of the line is wrong, but one of those notes is really cool and you would have never expected it. Take that note and put it into the line where they played it right. And, you know, it's just, it goes on and on. But I think having a sense of unpredictability and accidents is like essential for my flow.
That's an amazing response. So, man, thank you for answering that. Because thank you for whoever asked that. Thank you for answering that, because I just learned.
Yeah, that was a cool question.
Yeah, I have another good one I like too. Any tips for finishing lyrics on instrumentals?
It's hard. I mean, it's lyrics are always, you know, because you care. I mean, unless you don't care, which some people don't, and that's fine. Sometimes that's like, you know, it's just the vibe, and that's cool. But for me, I wanted to say something or tell a story, and I think it's just a patience game and drafting and like, you know, usually what I do, I don't know if this is helpful, but I'll like sing like gibberish, you know, and I'll just sing the melody, but I'll sing it like with fake words that, you know, are just almost like sounds. But then if I like make a voice memo of that, usually there's like lyrics hidden in there just because of the sounds.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do that. And I think that's definitely not like a new thing, but
no, but it's wise advice though.
Yeah,
a lot of people are waiting for the words to come, but to me, the melody is way more important, because you have to sing the words. Your voice is an instrument at the end of the day.
And it gives you a framework, and it's also coming from your instinct and your subconscious to just do gibberish. So then when you insert real words into it, not only are you sort of like finding meaning in that, but you're also, you know, it actually gives you a lot of opportunity to like start editing from there, because, you know, there's a lot of words that sound like this sound, and you then have choices. So
yeah, you know, it's interesting you mentioned like saying gibberish on the song. I saw an interview once, and Future, the rapper, you know, Future said the craziest thing. He said, sometimes on a beat I start doing nursery rhymes, and he goes, I'll literally hear a hard beat and start going like Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty, and he says he takes that and he morphs it into a new melody, subtracts the words, puts his own words, and he says he does that a lot, like a lot. And I think that's exactly kind of what you were mentioning.
I get it. I really get that, because those things are ingrained like beyond just like a song that we like. I mean, those are things that we've been hearing for forever, and they're catchy and singable for a kid for a reason, because they have something in them that is repetitive, or it has a hook that's like in your DNA. And so those things are good things to attach to. And then I think once you start from there, you start complexifying those things until you get something that's new. And I think starting simple and editing up is a good move.
Absolutely, because like the melody is everything. You can have the craziest lyric, craziest double entendre, but if it doesn't smoothly come out, it's never gonna hit.
Totally.
I want to take 2 more questions, and there's one that I actually would love to ask too. Sure. What are your favorite plugins? For anyone who doesn't know, plugins is for producers.
Yeah, that's a long list. Let's see.
Give us 2 of them.
Sure.
Your top 2.
I love UAD stuff. Yeah, Universal Audio. I'd say my favorite plugin from them is their Ampex 102. It's like their mastering tape emulator, but I don't necessarily use it for mastering. I'm putting it on tons of things for tape saturation and emulation and stereoization. And
so you're using it to master just one sound?
No, I'm not even. I mean, it's called a mastering tape because that's what the original machine was kind of mostly used for, as a mastering tape deck
Hmm.
or tape machine. But really, what I use it for is just adding tape saturation and different levels of tape saturation and bias and wow and flutter, and there's all these parameters that you can uh, use with it. It's a really amazing plugin and super easy to use, I think. And then let's see, another plugin that I've been using a lot recently and loving and trying to find new ways to use it is Little Altar Boy by Sound Toys. I'd say Sound Toys is like I mean, I can't really work without that stuff.
Sound
Um,
Toys. Okay. And
Sound
then
Toys,
Little Altar Boy.
Little Altar Boy,
That's a weird name, but sounds
and
dope.
Little Micro Shift. Little Altar Boy is like a pitch shifting thing, and it like basically like you have a wet and a dry mix, and so you can add an octave above or an octave below with lots of distortion, and you can sort of blend that in with your sound. And then Little Micro Shift is a plugin that sort of, it's like a chorus, but it also stereoizes your sound in a really pleasing way.
So that is a great answer. Little Altar Boy. And what was the first one again?
It's the Universal Audio UAD Ampex ATR 102.
Okay. Okay. I hope everyone is writing that down. But this will be on IGTV, so everyone knows you can go back, watch this over and over and over. Someone said this is a masterclass. I'm loving it. That's awesome.
That's nice.
Someone else called me Hitler. That's what happens when you have a mustache. Okay, last question. I really like this one. How did you get that rad wonky, great word, rad wonky guitar sound on Outside In?
Okay, I think they're talking about on the outside. So there's two guitars. I'd say the one that they're asking about is a guitar that was played by my friend Blake. Excuse me, Blake Mills, who is my favorite guitar player.
Super talented.
I mean, he's just the best. He's my favorite guitar player and producer in the world, truly. And he's a buddy, and he helped me a lot with that song. And that guitar, which is sort of the main guitar, it's actually sort of taking up the space of a bass as well. I mean, a lot of the bass line frequency is happening from that guitar too, and that's because it's a fretless baritone acoustic electric guitar that he has, that our friend Ruben from a shop called Old Style retrofitted. And it's a really unique instrument, and it's insanely hard to play because there's no frets. It's got a weird size, and so he's kind of one of the only people in the world that can play it like he does. And so that's just Blake ripping it up.
It's just Blake being Blake.
There's other guitars on there that are, maybe to get more nerdy, we love using at the studio we love using small amps and sort of driving them and having a mic close and then a mic far away in the room and panning them left and right, so you get a sort of delayed stereoization. And that's some of the other electric guitars on that song. So
I'm gonna rewatch this interview like 25 times by the end of this quarantine. You dropped a lot of gems, man. Do you have any last message you want to give to your fans, the people watching, people that are gonna rewatch this?
I mean, just stay safe, and the world is wild right now, and however you can keep putting your feelings into your art, whether you have a space to make recordings or you're just writing on a guitar or you're just writing lyrics, I'm excited to hear how people take some of this insane hardship and turn it into hopefully something more healing. And I also think that just keep going. It's really easy in times like this to get exhausted and fatigued and not want to, and your motivation is all whacked out, and it's okay. It's okay to take days off, but just try to keep believing in yourself. And that's easy advice to give, hard to take, but I think it's pretty real.
That is very, very real. Well, man, thank you so much for joining. So everybody knows, one last time, this is Ethan Gruska. Excuse my language, but dumb talented, extremely talented. Dropped the album January. If I'm correct, 12 songs. It's like about 36 minutes long. So everybody, you're not doing anything, which is everybody. Listen to the album now. Stay tuned. Tap in with Ethan. He is. I can't even think of the word to say because you're not on the rise. Like, you're like, shout out to John Williams, bro. You're on the Millennium Falcon going straight to Taboon or whatever it is. So we're gonna be excited. We got to tap back in when the quarantine's over. Please come to Dash. We're off Hollywood, right in the center of Hollywood. Big, beautiful building. We'll get you in. We want to have you perform, get on the air. Man, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Great to meet you, man. Thank you
Ethan,
for making some time.
Nice to meet you too. My name again was Maiwand. Thank you everyone who tapped in. Please download Dash Radio, free radio, 24/7, premium, no commercials. We break artists. We did Billie Eilish's first interview, Post Malone's first interview, Cardi B's first interview, and the next one, Ethan Gruska. Not first interview, but
yeah, totally.
You're following that line, man. So we're honored to have you now, and we're gonna hopefully you'll pick up our calls when you get that Grammy. We'll see.
Wow, that's really sweet, man. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course, man. We'll be in touch. Anyone who wants to rewatch, go to our IGTV. You'll be on there soon.
All right, man. Take care.
Ethan, take care, man. We'll be in touch.
See ya. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. Please download Dash Radio. Check out Ethan. You will hear him all over Dash. I want to say Dash Indie X will have him, a bunch of our stations. But thank you guys so much. Get the app. Stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of interviews next week. A lot of big things happening. So please stay tuned. Ethan, thank you once again. Guys, we'll see you soon.